for leadership and mentoring.
Welcome back to the Martin Houston Show, the sound of Bama sports. Your show, your team, on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Restoration One, Tuscaloosa's Restoration One water damage experts. Tuscaloosa Restoration water damage experts. Tuscaloosa Restoration One. You can find them online at restoration1oftuscaloosa.com. Restoration One, Tuscaloosa, the water damage experts can help you with residential and commercial restoration services, whether it's water damage, mold remediation, or odor removal. You need to reach out to them. Go to restoration1oftuscaloosa.com. You can see all the great services they offer and how to contact them there. Keith Heitch and his team look forward to the opportunity to assist you and work with you. So that's Restoration One, the number one of Tuscaloosa.com. All right. Well, National Signing Day is tomorrow, and you know, when you look at Alabama, Nick Saban, once again, they're fighting to be the number one overall team, recruiting class, etc. Some people say it's because of the Bama bump. We've had guys that we signed before National Signing Day, number one, that have gone from, one being Will Anderson, who was the number 64 player in the country. Now he's the number 5 player. We had Bryce Young move from 1 or 2 based on which ranking service. I think he was number 3 in 247 Sports. So we've seen Alabama get that bump as Bryce Young is now the number 1 player in 247 Sports when you look at their rankings. So I guess, the people who say the Bama bump exists, meaning that we're going to get the top players, etc. We've done that. But in the composite ranking, Georgia's the number 1 team. So Georgia and Alabama, Kirby Smart, Nick Saban battling it out. Clemson sitting at number 3. Here's the difference. Georgia's sitting with 23 commitments. They have a couple people that they're going to sign. Alabama's sitting with 26 commitments. Some of those guys, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. We have a couple guys that I'm not sure will ink the paper on tomorrow based on not that Alabama doesn't want them and not that they don't want to come to Alabama, maybe some grades and different things like that. So we'll see how that plays out. Clemson is done. Clemson is not going to sign anymore, so they're done. LSU sitting at number 4, Ohio State at number 5. If you look at the top 10 teams, SEC, you already have 3 teams in the top 4. Then you have, sitting at number 6, you have Texas A&M, Auburn, Florida at 6, 7, and 8. Oklahoma at 9, and then the most overrated coach, I think, in the history of college football, Jim Harbaugh, sitting at number 10. The guy, year in and year out, he really underwhelms you. And then you have, from a player ranking standpoint, you got Brian Bresee, the big defensive tackle. Wasn't really that impressed with him in the game. He played okay, but I'm not sure how good the guy he was going against really was. A big, heavy-footed guy that will be going to play at Wisconsin. But either way, in the composite ranking, Brian Bresee, number 1 overall all-player composite ranking. And if you don't know what the composite ranking is, sorry, I just assumed that you would. But the composite ranking is taking several of the top recruiting services, combining them to give an overall rating. So even though it says it's 247 Sports, composite ranking is not just 247 Sports. It's all the other major, or several of the other major recruiting services. Bryce Young sitting at number 2, and then Julian Fleming, Keely Ringo, Eric Gilbert, LSU commit that everyone thought was going to Georgia or Alabama, big tight end, but Alabama was able to replace that tight end loss with the sixth-year senior from North Carolina. So hopefully that young man will come in and be ready to play. Justin Flo, Miles Murphy, Jordan Birch, Paris Johnson Jr., and DJ Ugly Goggly Lee, something like that. DJ going to Clemson. So Clemson has 3 of the top 10 players in the composite ranking right now. Quarterback, strong defensive end, and defensive tackle. So Dabo Swinney reloading. Will Nick Saban close it out with McKinley Jackson, the big defensive tackle from Mississippi? If he gets him, I think that will boost Alabama potentially, even in the composite ranking, but definitely in the 247 sports ranking where they're clearly sitting at number 1. I had a couple people on Facebook asking Kevin Smith saying, I thought Bryce was overall number 1. According to the 247 player ranking, he's sitting at number 2. He was bumped up in the 247 individual ranking, but not in the composite ranking to number 1. So we'll see how that turns out overall. But listen, these things, if you're in the top 5, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's all about opinions and suggestions and all of that. How many times have we seen the number 1 overall player be as good as we thought? Most of the time, it's one of those other guys that's hungry to get to that spot. Kevin Smith also saying Anderson bumped because he showed out at the All-Star practices and couldn't be blocked. Oh, I have no question about Will Anderson going from 64 to 5. My point behind that is the rankings are good and it gives us something to talk about as show hosts, but that shows you right there that what if Will Anderson doesn't go to the All-Star game? Fletch, what if Will Anderson decides to stay at home? He was ranked number 64, and that's why I tell people sometimes when you see these stars and you see some of these guys, don't mean you're getting the best players. It means you're getting the best players that went to camps and that got evaluated. It doesn't mean that there's not, and not all the best players go to these things. That's why you see guys go to college and you go, well, why did no one recruit him? Well, they didn't recruit him because they were lazy and they didn't find him like Saban does.
Yeah, and that's why I was going to take it the other direction and say, what if, Josh Jacobs did go to a camp? What if
right.
Some of these other guys that we've seen become stars who clearly when you get them on the field and you see them do these drills, they're just absolute stars, but maybe they didn't have the money to go to the camp, maybe they didn't have the time to go to the camp, maybe the camp was too far away, whatever the case was,
right.
Maybe they had something planned that weekend with the family. There's all kinds of things
right.
that go into this. They're high school kids, and sometimes you're in the right place at the right time, and you get the right hype around you, and you become a star.
Yeah, and that's the key. But once you get to college, the playing field levels off to a certain degree. Some guys still get the opportunity to play because I like when you come into camp. I do think that sometimes coaches rank the depth charts that first day based on the stars. So, and if the guy that has the bigger star gets in front of you and shows out, then you may not get your chance right away. But if you keep grinding, and I've seen several guys get their opportunity because of what they did on the scout team. So Alabama has a big signing day coming up tomorrow. The question I have is, can we get some kicking? Can Alabama? That's where I was actually going to go with this conversation. Is that year in and year out, we have been. This is the bad part. As great as we've been, we have been the worst kicking team in the country for like 10 years in a row. Think about. I mean, like you go back and look at statistics. It's like we have the most missed field goals. If Alabama's going to create a new category in stats, you know what it is? The shank punt. If that was an official category, Fletch, I think we'd be leading the nation in shank punts.
Yeah, I mean, they got touchbacks. They got inside 20. I mean, how about punts out of bounds on the sideline?
Yeah, I mean,
we lead the league.
Yeah, shank punts less than 10 yards. well, we'll give 15, less than 15 yards, we would be leading the nation in another category. But supposedly, Alabama found a remedy because the reality of it is, Skylar DeLong, does he make it through to the fall? Because supposedly we have like more than the 85 scholarships, okay? So if we have, everybody always worries about the number we can sign as far as freshmen are concerned. That's one number you have to manage. The other number you have to manage is the total number of scholarship players on your team. And with some of the guys coming back this year, I think that put Alabama in, Dylan Moses, Najee Harris, and Devontae Smith. You may have been thinking that was going to be 3 of your 85 scholarships that would be gone. And they're not. They're back. And several other guys are back. So will you start seeing guys come in and get moved around, et cetera? And Skylar DeLong, one of those guys, because we took a commitment 2 days ago from a young man out of Birmingham who is there to he's supposed to be a punter. I mean, he's supposed to be a really good punter. I'm leery to say what he is, but I mean, do you know anything about him?
I don't know a lot about him, but I just want to take a moment and look back at the kicking rules of Alabama and the irony of the one successful special teams guy being J.K. Scott, who punts flat-footed. The only punter I've ever seen do that. I've never seen a punter who hits the ball the way J.K. Scott does, yet he is the only one of success
that we've had
in forever.
Yeah. So, well, and we have Sam Johnson said he's coming to Tuscaloosa to beat out DeLong and Perine. Sam Johnson, a recent kick specialist, a punter, preferred walk-on to the University of Alabama. First of all, I want to thank God for giving me this opportunity, my family, the coaches, and Hall Weber for always being with me and helping me be the punter and man I am today. With all that said, I am continuing my academic and athletic career at the University of Alabama. Per ColesKicking.com, Johnson is the number 2 punter in the 2020 recruiting class. Supposedly he's going to be a preferred walk-on. I would expect that, but he could have the potential, especially if Skylar DeLong goes somewhere else, to ultimately be a scholarship kicker.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. Do you think that this summer and into the fall workouts, do you think that that's kind of the tryout period? Skylar DeLong, here's your last chance. You beat this guy out, or he gets the scholarship.
I think there's going to be the battle for quarterback. I think there's going to be a battle for punter in Perine. Because Perine didn't play bad when he got an opportunity, especially being thrown in. And then you have DeLong and this young man. Hopefully one of them can show that they can punt consistently. I mean, we're not even looking for a guy to punt at 50 yards. We just want consistency. Let's get 35 to 40 first, and then we'll worry about getting 45 to 50. And that's. But the interesting part is, should there be more conversation around Banks? We have had our worst stretch of kicking since he's been here, and he's just kicking coach, and he's a former kicker specialist himself. But we've struggled, and of course, I give him a pass last year on Reichert because Reichert got hurt. But was that also part of the coaching? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't think about this, and I don't know, with college, you got certain guys you can have on the staff, certain limits you have, but I've always wondered why more teams don't, because you have a special teams coordinator, but they have to coordinate so much. There's pretty much anything that isn't an offensive play or a defensive play, they're running that.
Yeah, I mean, well, they're involved with every unit, every aspect of the game. They're part of the offense.
Mismatch play.
Right. They're part of the offense. They're part of the defense. They're part of the start of the game, the end of the game. I mean, it's a lot to do, and that's why I'm saying we finally got a coach that was dedicated to it, and we haven't gotten better at it. We were better when we didn't have a coach just dedicated to it.
Yeah,
And that may be a positive though, because that coach was involved with the players day to day versus, anyway.
That's why I've always wondered, why not just sign a guy who's fresh out of the NFL as a kicker, a guy who was a lifelong kicker. Sign him, let him just work with the kickers and punters.
There you go. That may work. Well, let's move on. We'll wrap up this edition of the Martin Houston Show in the fourth quarter coming up here in just a moment. I want to remind you that on tomorrow we'll have our Johnson & Marshall Dentistry Christian Moment of the Week presented by DentistTuscaloosa.com.